Have you ever pondered the true magnitude of a nuclear bomb? It's a question that plunges us into the depths of human imagination and scientific prowess. A nuclear weapon, an apparatus of destruction, harnesses the power of atoms, the very building blocks of the universe. Let's delve into the science of it all. Picture an atom, an infinitesimal speck, yet teeming with energy. Now imagine splitting that atom apart in a process called nuclear fission. This splitting releases a massive amount of energy, a force so potent it can level cities and even end lives in an instant. Now, let's transition from the realm of theory to the harsh reality of practice. The year was 1945. The world was embroiled in the throes of the Second World War. The United States, in a bid to bring the conflict to a swift conclusion, unleashed this unseen power on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The effects were immediate and devastating. In an instant, the cities were annihilated. Buildings crumbled like sandcastles before the tide, reduced to nothing but rubble. The landscape transformed into a desolate wasteland, a stark testament to the destructive power of nuclear weaponry. Hundreds of thousands of lives were extinguished in the blink of an eye. Men, women, children, none were spared from the indiscriminate wrath of the bomb. The aftermath was just as harrowing. Survivors, those who were fortunate or perhaps unfortunate enough to escape the initial blast, were left to navigate a world forever altered. They were plagued by burns, radiation sickness, and the haunting memories of the devastation. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked a turning point in human history. For the first time, mankind had harnessed the power of the atom for warfare, unveiling a weapon of unprecedented destruction. The world had witnessed the might of nuclear power, but at a cost too great to bear. And just as the mushroom clouds dissipated, the world was left to reckon with the fallout. But what happens when the dust settles? What remains in the wake of such power? In the immediate aftermath of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a pall of silence hung over the ruins. The cities were decimated, and countless lives were lost in an instant. Yet, amidst the rubble, the human spirit persisted. Rescue efforts began almost immediately. Survivors, often badly wounded, worked together to pull their friends, families, and even strangers from the wreckage. But the horrors of the bombings were far from over. The medical challenges that faced the survivors were unprecedented. Many suffered from severe burns and injuries, but it was the invisible threat that proved most devastating. Radiation sickness began to set in. Symptoms ranged from nausea and vomiting to hair loss and skin burns. Their bodies were ravaged not just by the initial blast, but by the insidious poison they had inhaled. But the effects of the radiation didn't stop there. Over time, survivors, known as hibakusha, began to develop various forms of cancer at alarmingly high rates. Leukemia, thyroid cancer, lung cancer, the list was extensive and terrifying. Even more heartbreaking was the reality that the radiation had a lasting genetic impact. The descendants of the hibakusha were, and still are, at a higher risk of genetic mutations and health issues, yet the physical scars were just one aspect of the aftermath. The psychological trauma experienced by the survivors was profound. The memories of the blast, the loss of loved ones, and the struggle for survival in a decimated city left deep emotional wounds. Many hibakusha suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety. Their lives and the lives of their descendants were forever marked by those fateful days in August 1945. So, when the dust finally settled over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it revealed a landscape of unimaginable devastation. A testament to the destructive power of mankind, yes, but also to the resilience of the human spirit. For those who survived, life was forever changed. The bombings marked the dawn of a new age, an era defined by nuclear power. These catastrophic events sent shockwaves that reverberated far beyond the physical boundaries of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The ashes of the bombings held the seeds of geopolitical transformation, ringing the death knell of the Second World War and ushering in a chilling Cold War. Suddenly the world was split into two opposing camps, each bristling with nuclear might. The United States and Soviet Union found themselves locked in a tenuous dance of power, their fingers hovering perilously over the nuclear trigger. This was the inception of the nuclear arms race, a dangerous game of one-upmanship that saw the proliferation of nuclear weapons across the globe. Yet even as nations stockpiled these weapons of mass destruction, the haunting images of Hiroshima and Nagasaki served as stark reminders of the devastation they could unleash. And so, the world entered a new era, one shadowed by the threat of nuclear warfare. What is the legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? How do we remember these events today? These questions lead us into a journey of remembrance and reflection. Across Japan and around the world, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki have left an indelible mark. We remember the events through memorials, museums, and annual commemorations. For instance, the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park and Nagasaki Peace Park stand as solemn reminders of the devastation that occurred in August 1945. These sites, visited by millions each year, house monuments, peace bells, and eternal flames, symbolizing the hope for a world free from nuclear weapons. But the legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is not just about the past. It's about the ongoing efforts for nuclear disarmament and peace. Every year, on the anniversaries of the bombings, thousands gather in Japan and across the globe to honor the victims and to advocate for a world without nuclear weapons. These peace movements, driven by survivors, their descendants, and countless supporters, carry the message of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to the world. They remind us that the cost of nuclear warfare is too great to bear. Amongst the most compelling voices in these efforts are the survivors of the bombings and their descendants. Known in Japan as hibakusha, these individuals carry with them not just the physical scars of the bombings, but also the resilience and hope that have emerged from the ashes. Their stories, passed down through generations, serve as powerful reminders of the human capacity to endure and to rebuild. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is thus a complex tapestry, woven from threads of memory, resilience, and hope. It's a legacy that asks us to reflect on our past, engage with our present, and imagine a better future. As we remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we are reminded of the power of humanity to endure, to learn, and to strive for a better future.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. That's all for Nifty Narration.